Welcome back everyone to another Girl Power Day Zero build, and today we have Ochaco Uraraka 5. I'm gonna be honest with you, this is one of the ones I was dreading the most. This and I think Giro 3. Cause I really didn't know what to make of Miss Uraraka 5. But let's see what I came up with, and let's see if we're able to... Nope, I can't think of a metaphor that would help me right now. So she is a 7 hand size, 21 health character. She has 1A and Student as her character traits. Her symbols are Chaos, Fire, and Good, and for this deck I built her off of Good. And she has 2 effects. The first is a response, twice per turn. After you commit 1 or more foundations during the enhanced step, your next check gets +1. So this is good if you're being stunned, or if you have effects that commit your own foundations. Excuse me. Pardon me. And then she has an enhance, change the zone of this mid attack to high, it gets +1 speed. So we're obviously going to want a mostly mid attack string. So let's see what we've got, shall we? For our attacks, we've got Zero Gravity Tag as our first. It's got a 1A response. You discard a card after you make the check to play this attack. That check gets +2. So this is kind of decent as a mid-range attack or a finisher, if you have ways to put damage on it, which, on its own, you can commit a foundation to give it 2 damage, and your rival commits a foundation, which could then trigger your twice per turn ability. The fact that this is twice per turn is a little rough to work with, but we'll see what we can do. So this is kind of just what she wants to do, make this a 3 mid 6, make it a high, so it's a 4 high 6, which isn't bad stats, it's not a bad rate, but it just feels like it's kind of your mid-range attack. I did go with Net Launcher, because this attack is amazing. You commit 3 face-up foundations that don't share a name to give this attack 3 speed, 6 damage, and stun 2, and then you get to respond with your twice per turn to get +1 to your next check, which is pretty cool. You can spend a momentum to build a foundation from your discard pile. You, of course, also build a foundation for your rival, but this mitigates your committing your 3 foundations by giving you 1 more foundation on top of your next check is +1. So it's kind of like just committing 1 foundation. But again, making this a 7 mid 11 with stun 2, which you can then change to a high to make it an 8 high 11, is pretty solid. And then I thought I'd get fancy with it with Repel Strike. This is a 5 mid 5 that says as a response, after the zone of this attack is changed, your rival commits a foundation. So you can make it a high for free and give it 1 speed. So make it a high, it's a 6 high 5, your rival commits a foundation. Then you can commit a foundation, change the zone of this attack gets 1 speed and 1 damage. So you can then make it a low, make it a 7 low 6, your rival commits another foundation. That's actually pretty good. So your rival commits 2 foundations, you throw a 7 low 6 at them, maybe more if you have more damage on board. But I thought that was a pretty neat trick to be able to throw. And of course, by committing the foundation for this effect, you trigger your twice per turn with Ochaco to get +1 to your next check. So that's pretty cool, and I like that. Spirit Gun Final is a really neat kill card for this deck. You commit 3 foundations to give it +5 speed, and then you can lose 3 health to give it +5 damage to make it a 10 mid 10, and then make it a high so it's an 11 high 10. And maybe your next check gets +1 if you need to with Ochaco. It's also got Breaker 1 on it, so that +2 mid block coming in handy. And then going with the Repel Strike, I thought Schoolyard Smackdown would be fun. It is a low attack, but after the zone of this attack is changed, it gets 1 speed and 1 damage. And you can discard an attack from your card pool, change this attack's zone to the discarded attack's printed zone. So you can discard a printed mid, which all of these are, to make this a mid. It gets +1 speed, +1 damage, so a 4 mid 5. And then you can change it to a high, so a 5 high 5, and then give it 1 speed, 1 damage, make it a 6 high 6. So you clear your card pool, and you make this a 6 high 6. That's pretty good, especially if you're throwing a 7 low 6 or, a 4 high 6, and you're actually doing some neat zone mix-up so that you're not constantly going to high. I mean, you kind of want to because you want to give your stuff 1 speed, but if you, say, make this a high and then make it a low with its own effect, your rival's probably not holding any low blocks. And if you just wanted to throw Schoolyard Smackdown with its powerful 2, if your rival's not holding any low blocks, you can just keep it as a powerful 2 and just throw a 3 low powerful 2, 3 low for a bunch. Then lastly we have Cannon Blast. Same thing as Net Launcher. It commits foundations, which can trigger your twice per turn, and we have at least one foundation, Defiant Stance, which readies itself when committed. So all of these commit costs can actually be a little bit more free if we're committing Defiant Stance. So imagine committing Defiant Stance with Repel Strike to make it a 7 low 6, and then it just readies itself. You didn't really lose anything. So again, making very much use of your foundation base, your character, and I'm trying to weave this synergy, because this character feels like she wants to do 2 different things that are pulling her in 2 different directions to me. And maybe it's just because I don't have any hope for the character, but who knows? Someone's going to pull a Chrome from her and want to know what to do with her. So Day 0 build, here's a starting point. Onto our assets, we have Airy, because she's a great defensive piece. She readies a non-unique foundation that you've committed during your turn, which is good since you're obviously wanting to commit your foundations. Being able to go into your rival's turn with an extra ready foundation is nice. And she's basically a you guarantee survive 1 attack. And when we have such low health, we kind of need something like that. And then to also trigger her twice per turn and give some extra damage to our stuff, we have Training Weights. You can commit a foundation to ready this asset. You can discard a momentum to ready this asset. And you can commit it to give it +1 damage for each time this enhance has been played this combat phase. So the longer you string, the more damage you can put on with Training Weights. And then, again, committing a foundation to ready it, which would then trigger our twice per turn, is really solid. Or we can just discard momentum to ready it if we're committing foundations with our own attacks, so that we don't have to worry necessarily about triggering that twice per turn if we don't need. Then we have our actions, Referee Jury. This is a really good defensive action. Change an attack's damage to 4. If it deals damage, draw a card. If our rival zeroes out our damage, this could be a good way to reset it a little bit, or it can just help us survive a little bit longer. And then in the card pool, we can flip it and commit a foundation. After our rival plays an enhance ability, they commit a foundation. And since we committed a foundation during the enhance step, Ochaco gives us +1 to our next check, which, having 1 card in our card pool on our rival's turn, is really handy. And then we have Airy Smiles, just another good defensive piece, especially since we can change our rival's mid-attacks to high. It would get +1 speed, but then we can fully block it with Airy Smiles, flip a foundation, force them to play a non-attack as their next form, and really disrupt what they want to do. Now our foundations. And this is kind of where I figured, okay, do we really know what we're trying to do here? Let's see if I figured something out. Steadfast Resolve, as a response, you destroy a foundation. After an attack is played, it gets +1 or -1 damage. Really good, keeps you out of deadlock, and can provide a little bit of extra damage or a little bit of extra relief in an emergency. We have Improvised Strategy. As a response, it says after a high attack is blocked, your next check to play a card gets +1. So if our rival blocks our high attack, we get an additional +1 to play another card. If we've made our rival's attack high, we can block it and get +1 to our next check to play another card, so we can block a little bit easier. We have Short Kick Admirer, which we can remove and spend a momentum, add a high attack from our card pool to our hand. That's really solid, because it doesn't say that you're not allowed to play that attack again. So we make an attack high, play another attack, pick up that high attack that we just had, and just play it again. So pretty cool for looping something like Zero Gravity Tag. That's, I believe, our lowest cost card. Yeah, everything else is a 5. Man, these Day Zeros didn't turn out the way I liked them to, but that's what Day Zeros are for. It's more figuring out what the character wants to do, what the decks want to do, and then making it better from there. And then we've got support gear updates, which is her main way of basically turning her character on. She can commit it can commit a foundation. Your high attack gets 2 speed, which helps push a lot of these damaging attacks through. And then as a tenacious ability, or playable while committed, we can spend a momentum to ready it. So kind of like training weights, but getting speed instead of damage. Curious about quirks? It's free draw. It's free draw when your rival plays their character ability, so why wouldn't you have 3 or 4 of it in here? Defiant Stance, as I said, helps mitigate a lot of our committing costs, because it readies itself once per turn after you commit it to pay a cost. And it doesn't flip, which is amazing. So you can use this over several turns, even on your rival's turn if you have ways to commit, like Referee Jury. It's basically using that ability for free. Cheerleader, great for defense. Just spend a momentum, give an attack flash. It's a good game ender or life extender. Usually you use it on defense. Double Sword Style, if it's committed due to a cost, you can get +1 or -1 damage. So again, good for adding more damage to our attacks when we're committing our own foundations if we didn't commit Defiant Stance. Or we can flip it to draw a card after we play our second attack. Your choice. Keiko's Aid, if you don't know what this card does anymore already, you're not paying attention. After you block an attack, your rival's next attack gets 2 difficulty, which is really, really good, especially if you've done something like Airy Smiles, which then they have to play a non-attack first, then an attack with +2 difficulty. Really solid. Strength and Beauty can give our mid-attack +2 speed, which most of our attacks start as mid, so we can give them 2 speed, then change it to high, give it another speed. That's pretty solid. And we can lock a card into our rival's card pool by removing it even if it's committed, which shuts down characters like Amajiki. Well, Amajiki does say during the end phase, but like Elder Toguro or anyone trying to clear their card pool, Award the Victor, this shuts down, which is really good for strategies like that. We've got Lemillion of the Big Three. He's got 3 abilities. Depending on the zone of your attack, you can give it +1 speed or +1 damage. Since we are changing the zones of our attacks, we can give our mid-attacks +1 speed, then we make them high, give them +1 damage, which is really solid, and just really good for stacking on more stats, considering we're kind of underwhelming as a character in the first place. Nice Try, we can commit it on our turn, it readies during our rival's turn, and then we can commit it on our rival's turn for -2 speed. It's just an amazing piece. Permeation. Now this says after the zone of your attack is changed, your rival commits a foundation by flipping this card. So most of our attacks are going to change their zone, except for Cannon Blast. And we can just force our rival to commit foundations. That seems like an absolute win to me if we're going to be doing this kind of playstyle. Heroic Assistance, this is really good because it says after one of your foundations is committed due to your rival's effect, ready 2 foundations that haven't been readied this combat phase, which then can also combo with the +1 we get from Uraraka. So all in all, like a +3 for them stun wanting us. That's pretty good. Sense of Justice, if you can play this card, you should have it at least of a 2 in your deck, my personal opinion. There's a lot of tribal decks out there, and this absolutely wrecks on tribal decks. So if your rival's playing all charges, and they have like 4 cards in their attacks in their card pool, you can say, cool, -4 damage, or -4 speed. It's just, all in all, a very solid defensive card. And then New Training Method. This can build itself to build a foundation from your hand committed. That's great. Or you can commit and flip it after you check a foundation, add it to your hand. So we can pick up a Keiko's Aid if we check it. We can pick up a Defiant Stance, support gear updates, any of these that we would necessarily need. Plus it's good for a quick early build if need be. But that is good Ochaco V. If I'm being honest, like I said, I think her and Jiro are the 2 I feel the weakest about. But now that I look at what I was doing with this, I do kind of like this zone mix-up idea. Obviously, I would want to tone down the difficulty spike of my attacks, unless I'm doing a lot more clearing. But it's cool. It's interesting. The fact that she can change the zone for free and give speed, It's kind of like Mirio, but she's more zone locked instead of keyword locked. And then having access to a bunch of Mirio stuff that can commit my rival's cards, give me extra damage. I kind of dig it. I might tweak this and work with this and have it like as a fun locals deck. Because let's be honest, I don't think Ochaco 5 is going to be very competitive. I don't think anyone thinks Ochaco 5 is going to be very competitive. But as a fun locals deck, I could kind of see it. If you're just doing some zone mix-up stuff, having a good time, just throwing stats and playing a bunch of enhances at once. Yeah, could be neat. Probably better on Chaos with the armor stuff, who knows, but as for a good build, I think this is a pretty decent good symbol build. So that is all for Ochaco Uraraka 5, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, guys.